reform. You and I have come to understand over the years that that is just a buzz term. That is a code term for a single word: amnesty. Amnesty is wrong, and as your next United States Senator, I will oppose amnesty and I will reintroduce the Enforcement First Act. And because I believe this election in November will be a clarifying moment in American history, I expect to have a lot of company and a lot of co-sponsors, and we will say no to amnesty. Here is my biggest message. This is my greatest lament, as one who has not only been honored to serve in the Congress of the United States, but one who is far more honored, sharing a description with you of citizen. Here we are, almost a decade after 9/11, and our federal government still has not moved in any tangible way to protect the sanctity and security and sovereignty of our national borders. And this is the reason why. It is not unique to any one political party. But there is an outlook, sadly, that is shared by Barack Obama and Janet Napolitano, and yes, even by John McCain. All three, and so many others in Washington, view this as a political problem to be managed, instead of seeing it for what it really is: a national security threat, an economic security threat, and an invasion that must be stopped. Right. All you need to do is look back at the bill that my opponent introduced not once, but twice. Our friend Robert Rector at the Heritage Foundation sat down and ran the numbers. The cost to you and me and every other lawful American taxpayer for retirement benefits alone, that is to say, for Social Security and Medicare benefits to illegals granted citizenship under the McCain amnesty bill, would total $2.6 trillion. That is more than ill-advised or wrong-headed. That is a prescription for national fiscal disaster, or dare I say worse, national suicide. It is unsustainable. And as your next senator, I will fight on behalf of all citizens to ensure that nothing like this takes place. Yes, there are key differences. There are others briefly noted. In the fall of 2008, our nation was roiled by a financial panic. Senator McCain suspended his presidential campaign amidst great fanfare and returned to Washington. From behind a broadcaster's microphone, I voiced the very real thought, wish, hope that he would say, hey, calm down. That he would bring a steady hand to this panic. Would that had been so. Former Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson, one of the architects of the infamous bailout, said the most important person to getting that bailout passed was our senior senator. $700 billion to the Wall Street investment banks, and another $150 billion in earmarks. Oh, but you don't hear that on the McCain television ads or on the radio ads. And yet, that is part of the record. No wonder then that the day following that vote, my opponent met with members of the press and called the vote, I believe the term he used was an obscenity. Of course, that was the day after he voted for it. And then at the start of this campaign, maybe you're a bit like me, I no longer subscribe to the Arizona Republic. So someone had to show me the newspaper. The headline 3 weeks into this new campaign was as follows: McCain, I was misled on TARP. Now understand, this came 2 days following a report on NBC Nightly News that featured both of us and highlighted comments by my opponent, where he said that his 28 years in Washington better equipped him to represent us in the United States Senate. So in Arizona vernacular, this was not John's first rodeo. And yet to say, well, I was for the bill before I was against it, and I was misled, so it's somebody else's fault. I'm sorry, that sounds a lot more like John Kerry. John McCain, you and I used to vote for and used to work with and work for. That's another reason it's time for a change. Cap and trade. A Congress ago, John McCain was front and center with his good friend Joe Lieberman introducing the cap and trade bill. My opponent, amidst great fanfare, in one of those classic Washington press conferences, stood front and center saying, and I quote, "I don't see how you can be a conservative and oppose cap and trade." Really, John? I do. Because cap and trade is a solution in search of a problem. Global warming has been proven to be a hoax, and cap and trade is a worse hoax on the American people. Would be to take more and more of your wealth in higher energy rates, in higher taxes, and in a lower standard of living for the American people. And it is wrong. And yet my opponent wrote the bill in the last Congress. Finally, there is this. I'm sure there's much more, but I'm going to leave it to you as we turn this into a dialogue instead of a monologue. Serving you in the Congress of the United States, my colleagues afforded me a great opportunity. As the first and thus far only Arizonan to serve on the House Ways and Means Committee, the committee with direct jurisdiction over our tax code, because this Constitution stipulates that all revenue bills, that is to say, all tax legislation, originates in the House. And so I literally had a hand in writing the tax cuts of 2001 and 2003. And you can recall those were uncertain times economically. And those tax cuts helped reinvigorate our economy. At one point, things were going so well here in Arizona that our unemployment rate was down to 4.2%. Why? Because government cannot in and of itself create wealth, but government can create the conditions that can allow you to succeed by allowing you to hold on to more of your hard-earned money to save, spend, and invest as you see fit. And that is how we come out of economic crisis. That's how we've done it in the past. That's how we will do it again. And yet it's using the line my opponent expropriated from former President Reagan the other night in our televised debates, editorially, not to great effect. Facts are stubborn things. On both occasions, my opponent went to the well of the United States Senate not only voting no, but voting no and calling both of those tax cut measures, quote, tax cuts for the rich. Again, sounding a lot more like John Kerry than the John McCain we used to know and the John McCain we used to support. You've heard the full context of my remarks. There may be those who tried to push and pull and manipulate, but you've heard me through. I began our time together with words of praise and honor for our senior senator, and I likewise will conclude in the same manner. There